Uh, my first time speaking, so bear with me a little bit. I get nervous. I didn't like speaking in meetings most of the time, but this last year, though, I did share probably almost at every meeting that I was at, just to get out of me, and like Reed said, it was I didn't get anything that I expected I was going to get, and expectations are don't expect nothing in this program. You know what I mean? Other than coming, for me, I come here to help where I can and when I can. I met Rob. I met Rob too about, I don't know, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and with my sponsor and with Rob too at the same time. I didn't know what to do. I was going to meetings, but it wasn't like I was still nuts. I was still a little crazy. And Rob's like, well, why don't you go to county jails? Webster County Jail needs someone to go in there on Sundays. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months until another guy took it over. But that helped, for me. Uh, I come from places like that to see guys with their eyes wide open, scared, not knowing what's going to happen to them, where they're going to go or how it's going to happen. And for me to read out of the big book to them, and say, we can stay sober in prison too, and in jail. I did that for a while. I really enjoyed that. And then, so I needed more, like Reed was saying. I work in construction on the road, so when it rains, I don't work, and I'm sitting at home by myself, and I'm like, well, there's a meeting at 8 a.m. I can go to a meeting at 8 a.m., and I go to a meeting at 8 a.m., go one at 10 a.m., go one at noon. I think from noon to 4, there's not too many, but I went to one at 4. I'll go to one at 5:30, and I went to one at 7. That's what I did when I wasn't working. And call my sponsor a lot. I did call him a lot. I'm like, sorry if I'm calling you too much. He's like, don't worry about it. That's what we do, And yeah, it was a rough year. My wife left me. Sorry. I'm better. Still, when I talk about it, though, I still get a little emotional. But it's hard to. If I didn't come back to these rooms when that happened, I would have been a wreck. Even though I was a wreck inside these rooms, at least I was sober. And my sponsor saw that. Like, just keep going to meetings, and keep calling people and keep reaching out, and give your number to people, and give your number to newcomers, give your number to people and call people. And I have a list, I call. If my sponsor don't answer, I call Rob. If Rob don't answer, I just go down the list until someone answers the phone for me. And I think that's what kept me coming back to these rooms, and not just giving up and doing it my way. If I would have done it my way, I would have been drunk, or worse. But the journey this year has been pretty rough, but also good, Acceptance is the key to all our answers. Or all our problems. I said that wrong, sorry. To all our problems. And my problem was letting go. I thought if I tried hard enough, if I came back to these rooms, if I just showed my family that I'm trying, that I'll get them all back, and God had a different plan, or God has a different plan. I don't know what the plan is yet, but now I know is if I stay still long enough that, I can follow his direction, Say my journey with alcoholism and drugs started when I was 13 years old. I wasn't a full-blown alcoholic at 13. I drank my dad's beer in the fridge or my grandpa's, but I didn't start actually drinking till I was 16, kind of went downhill at 16 years old. Using and drinking is part of my story too. So I apologize to all the professional alcoholics in here. Um, uh, but alcohol was always my first my first thing I went to, and then it went to the other stuff. Um, from 16 to 18 was 19. I didn't know where I was going. I was on the streets. Um, I didn't care where I was at that time, as long as I was getting loaded and getting drunk whenever I could. I'm from California originally. I talk to guys at work about beer runs, and they're like, beer runs? Like this is the Midwest. We don't do beer runs. We just ask someone to buy us alcohol. I said, well, I didn't have money to ask for alcohol, so I just go in the liquor store and grab 2 cases and run out. That's called a beer run. You know. So that was the gist of it. That was fun. That was fun to me, and progressively my disease and my alcoholism got worse. I started using at the same time. I lost a lot of people that just trust because of the way I was, and no one wanted me around no more. My mother didn't want me around. My dad definitely didn't want me around, because I drink all his alcohol. So, but so, man, you drink more than me. I said, yeah. But I'd say I was on juvenile probation. I got kicked out of high school at 16 years old for having narcotics on me and a weapon. Put on juvenile probation. So this starts a story of where my life went until where I'm at now a little bit. So I violated that probation. I tested dirty, and she's all, you're gonna go to YA if you don't go into rehab. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so she sends me to this Christian rehab in Compton. I don't know if you guys know where Compton's at, but I had to take the bus from Arcadia, which is about 35 miles east of LA, and take the bus to Compton and get off the bus and walk about, I don't know, a mile to some church and fill out this application and get in there. And they were surprised that a white kid would walk through Compton at that late at night to go into rehab. Like, oh, you must be desperate. So, yeah, I don't want to go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course I'm going to do whatever it takes to not go to YA, and which is youth authority for out there. And it's pretty bad in YA. Sometimes it's even worse than prisons, for a kid at 17, 18, whatever I was. But that lasted about 6 months. I was in that rehab, and I lost my temper. I have a temper problem too, just a little one. And working with the sponsor and these steps, so I don't know, it's like it's different now, like I can see it coming. Before I would just let it come, and like I enjoyed being in that rage, and working a program has helped a lot with letting that stuff go. You know what I mean? Like today was a little rough at work. One kid kind of got a little jerky with me. I'm like, I must be speaking tonight, and I'm over here thinking about cussing this kid out. But I learned to also take it easy on myself. I didn't react to it. I thought about it. I'm like, okay, that's not how we do things anymore, Kevin. And yeah, I was, and that was, I didn't get down on myself about it. I didn't like, oh man, you're a piece of crap. Look what you're thinking. Look what you're gonna do. Look what's gonna happen. And then it's like, let it go and say, I didn't do it though. I didn't lose my temper on this kid. He's 20 years old and he doesn't know anything. You know what I mean? And he's just got a chip on his shoulder. I remember being 20, and that's what I told myself. Like, just let it go. Just let it go. And but sorry, I jumped around a little bit if I just nervous. So when I left that rehab, I was 19, I think, 18, 19, 18. It was over something stupid. I lost my temper, of course. We used to have to wash cars by hand at a car auction all day because I didn't want to go door to door asking for money. I just can't speak to people like that. I'm not a good speaker. You know what I mean? Like open the door and try to sell someone something. I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. So they said, well, you can wash cars all day. I said, yeah, I can do that. You know, and lunchtime came around. They give out you a bag lunch, and you're supposed to get a drink in there and your lunch and all this stuff. And I didn't get my drink. So I went back. I said, hey, I didn't get a drink. And the guy says, yeah, you did. I said, no, I didn't. And he's all, yeah, you did. And that was it. You know what I mean? I said something to him and went back to the pastor at the church, and I put some holes in the wall and told him, go ahead and stick this up their rear end. You know what I mean? And I left. And 6 months later, I was in prison for bank robbery. And that's how that goes. That's how my temper gets me in trouble, my addiction. I did, and I didn't stop using in prison. You know what I mean? For me, it was easier to get loaded in prison and drunk. We make Pruno. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Pruno. It's a quick wine that you make with smashed apples. You know what I mean? You smash up a bunch of apples to make the juice, and you put a little yeast and sugar in there and let it ferment for about 3 days. It's probably the best tasting stuff you ever tasted, but no, I'm just playing. It tastes the same as it does when it goes in, and it tastes the same as it does when it comes out. But that was my everyday thing in there, getting loaded, getting drunk, not changing at all. And I didn't change at all. I got paroled in 2002. Not long ago? Yeah, 2002, I got out to a halfway house. Halfway house is halfway in, halfway out. Like, you do good here, we'll release you to the street. But that didn't work out like that for me. That night, they give you gate money when you get paroled. And my girlfriend picked me up. She took me straight to the halfway house too. So and that night, a couple guys are, we're going to go to 7-Eleven and we're going to get a 6-pack. You know what I mean? And I'm like, 6-pack. I'm like, gave them $20 to come back with an 18-pack or whatever. I stayed up drinking the whole thing. I was only out maybe 6 hours of prison. And they all went to sleep, you know, and I stayed up like an idiot walking around, and they breathalyzed me. And I'm like, yeah, you're going. The very next morning, marshals came and picked me up and took me right back to prison. Same cell I just got out of 2 days before. You know what I mean? Same cell. You're like, hey, what's going on? You know? I'm like, oh man, no way. This is like a nightmare, you know? The girlfriend on the phone call, I called her and let her know I was going back, and she thought it was her fault, you know, she blamed herself. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with you. Me being an addict and an alcoholic has nothing to do with you. You know, and I said, I'm sorry, this is who I am, you know, at the moment, that's who I was, you know, and I wasn't willing to change for anybody, you know. I was only in there for 90 days, you know, and I got out, got on parole. I think I paroled to my dad's house. But that's 2002. I stayed clean and sober, got a job probably for 6 months. That was probably the longest. And I went robbed another bank. Because I thought the first time I can get it right the second time. I'm not a good bank robber, you know what I mean? So, and just to let you know, I suck at it. And I didn't get a lot of money. Like, oh man, like, no, I could have worked at McDonald's for 2 months, probably got more money, you know. But this time state picked me up. I didn't do federal time, I did state time. And they gave me 4 years and something, because I didn't go in there with a gun or nothing. You know, I mean, I just went in there and asked them for the money, you know. And well, I watched something on the news, right? So I was going to go in there with the fake gun and stuff and do all that stuff and try to put a mask on. And I watched the news. This guy's called the Yankee Bandit or something like that. And he had a Yankees hat on. He would go in there and just give him a note. Say, give me the money. I got a gun. Give me the money. I'm like, I can do that. You know, you don't leave the note there if you're ever going to do that. You know what I mean? So that's how I got caught. But no, plus the cameras. I didn't go. I went in there like this. You know what I mean? Like, um, I was done being on the streets and being an alcoholic, and I didn't know where else to go. And I knew, nobody wanted me no more. You know what I mean? And it's only been 10 minutes. So nobody wanted me no more. I'm like, well, prison wants you. You know what I mean? Like, they'll accept you there. And they did too. I was young. And they will take you under their wing, as they say. You know what I mean? Try to tell you they're your family, and that's what I wanted. I just someone to accept me for who I was. They did, and I was nuts, more nuts than I probably was a year ago. About the same, probably. I was probably the same nuts. If I didn't find a sponsor and come back to this program, I probably would have ended up back with the people that were supposed to be my family. And thank God that I came back to these rooms. And I do every day. I wake up saying thank you. Every day. Because it says not to forget our past, and I just kept remembering where I came from and the people I used to be around and the violence and the being scared. That's the biggest thing. I'm a tough guy. I can get tattoos on my head and my neck, and I'll put work in and I'll do all this stuff. I'm not scared of nothing. And do my 4th step, I was scared of everything. It's just full fear all the time, and acting out on that fear. Some people turn into they don't react to anybody. They just go into like a turtle shell, but me and my fear turns into rage and anger, and that's how I combat my fear, and that's not the way it'd be. It got me in a lot of trouble over the years. My 4 years turned into about 5, I think, almost 5 years, because I was not a good role model in prison. I did stay sober and clean in my 2nd term, though. I did not use or drink for those 4 years. And I was still nuts. I didn't have a program. That actually made me more clear-minded to do the things that I actually wanted to do, I guess, for someone else, but that place is a horrible place to be for anybody. And when I went into the county jails and I seen those guys' eyes wide open, I know that fear. I knew, like, you don't know what to expect, what's going to happen. And, but I adapt. I blend in, and I don't necessarily do what I'm told, but I blended in and I was accepted. You're either part of something in there or you're not in California. You're either part of this group here or you're not. You're a victim. I went part of the group because I was so scared to be that victim. So standing up for myself, saying I don't care what happens to me. I went and followed the crowd. That's why I got tattoos on my head, and I got tattoos on my hands. I got tattoos I thought that was pretty cool, I paroled in 2007 into another halfway house. Well, a quick story before I go to that far. When I did parole the first time, I violated by testing dirty, not for robbing a bank. He didn't even know about it. My PO didn't even know about me robbing a bank. He said, "Oh, you tested dirty. He's all, you need to go to this rehab." I'm like, okay. So I went to the rehab, and for some reason they always make me the head cook. Prison, rehabs, I don't know why. They just keep me in a corner somewhere by myself, busy. I don't know. I don't know why, you know what I mean? I don't know. And I remember cooking breakfast or lunch or whatever we were doing, and one of the I forget what they call them, the staff comes in, says, "Kevin, I need to talk to you real quick." And I looked at him. I said, "There ain't gonna be a bunch of marshals and sheriffs outside waiting for me, is there?" And he just looked at me. He's all, you going to be mad if there is? I said, no, I'm not going to be mad. I knew it was coming. You know what I mean? It was just a matter of time. But I did leave that rehab one night. I was planning on leaving and just keep robbing banks and just keep going down the life I was going to go down. I was going to meet some guy, and I took off, and someone saw me taking off down the street. And one of those staff, his name was Stan, a little short black man, like this tall, chased me down the street and said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, I said, I got stuff over my head. I don't want to do this. He's like, right now is a choice. You need to make a choice right now. You either get in the van or you go down that life and keep going down it. And he talked to me for a little bit, and I think that was the first time in my life you get that clarity. You know, I got a little clarity, and I got in the van with him. No matter the repercussions of me going back to prison, I got in there and I went back to rehab. I think that's why I stayed sober for those 4 years, because that man gave me a little hope. You know what I mean? Like there's something more to life than what I was gonna go do with this guy I met at a bar or some pool hall or bar. And the guy I was gonna go do this stuff with ended up still in a car that night, going to Arizona. Anyways, it was all bad. He ended up dead. So, and I look at that, and I'm like, that would have been me, because I'm dumb. I was dumb. I was young, and I didn't care. And that little man saved my life. He died of cancer like 8 years later, so I didn't get to see him when I paroled, because I went back to that same rehab, and that's where I met my wife. That was a good mix. We didn't start dating in rehab. You know, we didn't. I actually met my girlfriend before her at an NA convention. So, and it wasn't like I was looking for a date. You know what I mean? I met this girl, and she followed me outside, and I'm like, oh, I just got out of prison. You know what I mean? So she likes me. She likes me. I'm a good guy, you know. And we dated I think for like 6 months, you know, and my craziness came out, my insecurities, my fear, and I pushed her away, you know, and my MO is, I don't want to feel this way, so I'm gonna go and be with someone else. And that's what I did. And end up getting that girl pregnant, and she knew who I was, and she went behind my back and had an abortion. And I think that hurt a lot, you know. I know it's your choice and all that stuff, but you know what, I would have took care of the kid. You know, I had a little resentment. I went over that with my sponsor about what she did, and I forgive her. You know what I mean? Like she didn't want a kid with someone like me. And when it happened, I'm like, what do you mean? I'm perfect. You know what I mean? But when she did it, and later on in life, when I did my 4th step, and I kind of went over that resentment, it's like she did the best thing for her that she thought was for her. You know what I mean? And which was fine. You know, it hurt, and I didn't use over it. You know what I mean? And I didn't drink over it. I was staying sober in that time period. I didn't relapse till I was 30. But I don't know. Hope I'm not boring you guys too much. You know, bank robberies and living on the streets and stuff. Normal stuff as alcoholics and addicts. I don't know. For me, I just adapt. You know, no matter how scared I am, I just adapt to the situation and try to show people I'm not scared. You know, I ended up getting back with that girl that I met at the NA convention. We ended up moving together. I proposed to her. We're going to get married. And I found out she's just as nuts as I was. You know, we're both mentally and physically or spiritually sick inside. You know what I mean? And we were not, it was not a good mix, you know. I talk to her once in a while, still see how she's doing. She's still nuts, you know. But she's a good person if she wants to be. And I made my amends to her 10 years ago when I first got sober. And my wife left me 10 years ago too, because I was a real bad alcoholic, violent, and uh, she had every right to leave me, and man, I think about it, like it's not fair. I was sober when she left me this time. You know what I mean? Like I was actually trying. I prayed every morning, like make me a better man, make me a better husband, make me a better father. And I didn't do nothing though. I didn't do nothing. I went to work. I came home and I sat there and said, "Okay, try not to lose your crap today. Try not to lose it." You know what I mean? And it worked most of the time. Um, but I wasn't working a program. I thought going to church 3 times a week was going to help solve this anger issue. Someone going to pray over me and I'm going to be cured. It wasn't like I wasn't going to men's groups and telling them, "Hey, I got this anger in me," and I don't think they understood where it was coming from. You know what I mean? Because they didn't grow up the way I did. They didn't grow up with an alcoholic father or an addict mom. They didn't grow up that way. I mean, not all of them. So they just thinking, well, read the scripture right here and, pray God take away your anger. And he didn't. He took my family away instead and said, "Here you go now, work on your anger." And that's where I've been at for the last year. It does, there's anger still in there. I get upset sometimes, like, I don't know, that pity party or whatever you want to call it, like, I provided. I went to work every day. I didn't like go out and, run the neighborhood and do all that stuff. But I think my wife needed more than what I was giving her. And I think that was probably the biggest thing to forgive myself. That was probably the hardest thing to forgive. Like, it's all my fault. This is all my fault. I mean, I should have known better. I should have done better. I should have tried harder. I'm gonna try harder now. I'm gonna try harder now, but it's too late. It was too late. And that messed me up a lot. Messed me up enough where I had to go to 6 meetings a day. And still didn't shut my mind up. Still didn't shut my brain up. My brain was still going 10,000 miles an hour, like just like on and on and on. I just wanted to stop. I just wanted to shut up. Meditate, learn how to meditate. Okay, 2 seconds, I meditate. Boom, I'm off on some tangent in my brain. And I'm like, why is this happening? And like I said, when I started actually doing service work and reaching out and showing him a little of my experience, I didn't have a lot of time sober, but I've been in the program, before, and I know that this does work if you work it, you know what I mean? And when you stop and think you can do it, I thought I can do it on my own. It just kind of went bad. I wasn't happy inside, and something was missing. And might really, I don't try to search. I don't try to search for answers. I just try to be, like accept me for who I am, and not try to act out on that fear anymore. And if I do, I call somebody, like, man, I'm not perfect. I fail every day. You know what I mean? It says we base this program off spiritual principles, not perfection. And that doesn't mean we don't try. I mean, like we don't say, oh well, that didn't work, and let's not try to do that again. I try to see it before it comes now, before I act out on it. It doesn't always work out for me. I'll call my sponsor after I do something dumb. You know what I mean? Emotionally relapse, whatever you want to call it, in my brain. And it's like, well, how'd that work out for you? And just like I expected, I'm still in the same spot, and I was getting tired of that. Doing the same thing and thinking that something different's going to happen, and then being hard on myself about it because I know better, and it's like, you got to stop doing that stuff, you know what I mean? And the only way the only way for me to a little sanity and a little clarity. It took about 6 or 7 months, I think. One day, I pray before I go to bed. I do my 10 step. I call my sponsor. Read 2 pages of this, read 2 pages of that, and I follow direction for the most part. I do. I try to listen, and sometimes I just do me, and that always gets me in trouble. But I woke up one morning and it stopped. It just stopped. It just was quiet, and they say that's for me, that was my spiritual awakening, when my voices in my head just shut up. It just shut up, like I was just quiet. And it hasn't gotten the way it was like that long as I kept coming back here, as long as I kept doing what I was supposed to be doing through the program and suggestions and helping people wherever I could. It don't matter if you're putting chairs away, like you say at the end of the meeting, like stuff like that. That helps me get out of myself, because that's a bad place to be, inside my mind. I know Heath Rayer, we do burl together, and he knows a lot of my story too, about my anger and all that stuff. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it. A lot of good people I know came to support me tonight, and I thank you all for that. Hope I didn't bore you too much. And insecurity still I got, yes, and I'm not shaking out of my bones right now like I thought I was going to be. I'm still a little nervous, but not like used to be. I'd be running for the bathroom by now. But yeah, I try to work on me today. Be still. They say if you be quiet, if I can be quiet in my mind and actually pray to my higher power and ask him what he wants me to do, he'll send you down the direction you need to go. And the only thing I ever hear, I don't hear God talk to me, but I do hear, all I hear is wait. That's all. I don't know if it's just me telling myself that. Just wait, stop. Don't react to everything. Don't react to your feelings, and I thank my higher power for getting me this far. Get me back into these rooms and not being scared to come back into these rooms. I didn't want to come back, I didn't want to come back and tell people I lost my family again. You know what I mean? I don't want to come back and say I'm still insane. I didn't want to come back and do that and take a white chip and humble myself, but I did. I thank God for that. I met my sponsor a week later. I think after coming back to the program a week later, I met my sponsor, and I think that helped a lot, getting a sponsor right away. For me, it did. I've done this program without getting a sponsor before, and it doesn't work out so well. This time I actually got a sponsor right away and went to work. We went to work in the big book, and it works. I'm still here, a year later. I didn't get nothing back. I didn't get my wife or my kids back. I still got my job, you know what I mean? But I didn't get nothing back. But we can stay sober through divorce. We can stay sober through prison. We can stay sober through death. You know what I mean? As long as we work this program, and I'm very grateful every morning when I wake up sober, and I think that's all I got, fellas.